Happy Friday! How is everybody doing? Alright, it's time for another week's of casual wine topic on Friday where we just kind of chit chat. So I actually posted a topic we're going to talk about today, which is what is the best wine pairing with sushi. And interestingly enough, I feel like there's more involvement and more comments already in the original post about the live. I'm hoping some of you guys will hop on with me and kind of give me your opinion, your suggestion, and how you're feeling about it. At 2 o'clock, I see Ken. Good afternoon, Ken. Very exciting day yesterday. So I finally got to try one of the famed Bay Area sushi restaurant, the Sushi Yoshimitsu, which is I think the only sushi restaurant in the Bay Area that has 2 Michelin stars. And ironically, I was supposed to go dine in there for the first time in my life back in March. I think it was March 18th or 17th or something like that. I had a reservation, and we literally started California quarantine and shut down 3 days prior to my reservation date. So I never actually gotten to eat there. But yesterday was my husband's birthday, so we decided to splurge and we got some take home and try sushi last night. And it really inspired me to do this casual talk. I'm definitely going to go over what everyone thinks is the best pairing with sushi. And I personally wanted to talk about this because yesterday was one of those interesting moments where I enjoyed the food. It was really great. We had their nigiri set, and then I also tried their chirashi set. And for those of you who didn't know, and I didn't know until this morning, I just did the research, that Sushi Yoshizumi is pretty famous because they use a very special style of sushi making. It's called edomai, so please correct my pronunciation. But it is like the old-timer 1800 styles of sushi coming out from Tokyo. And from what I've read briefly, by no means an expert here, it is a style kind of made and created for back in the days for when there is no refrigeration and any safe way to transport and keep the fish fresh. So people were very creative in preserving the fish by means of smoking, pickling, vinegarized. So there's a lot of different, I feel like, there's a lot more add to the flavor of the sushi than what you normally think of as sushi. And of course, I've been in the United States for the last 24 years. So here in California, I think what we think of sushi might be very Californian in style and is very different from maybe a lot of the traditional Japanese style of sushi. So with that being said, I absolutely enjoyed the food, and I really enjoyed the wine. We ended up drinking with it last night, which was a small grower producer. I know we're kind of flipped. I can actually flip this back. I always think that's always fun. Hold on. I always think it's like hard to read it. Ta-da! Magic. So I was drinking the Michel Turgis Blanc de Blanc, and I thought was something like a sushi. I wanted to have something that's high mineral. So a lot of the people in hold on, let me see. A lot of the people in the comment earlier when I posted about it, they all talk about things that's really high acid and very mineral driven to pair with sushi. And it actually is logically what I think will work. So that's what we drank last night, and it was delicious. But I will be 100% honest with you. Halfway through, I was kind of disappointed with my choice because I didn't know enough about the style of sushi that Sushi Yoshizumi was making, which is the one I just talked about, the edome style of sushi, which is actually a lot of vinegar, a lot of smoke, a lot of flavor. It's not just your really fresh, flavorless piece of fish over slightly vinegar rice, which is, I think, most of the style here in California is more clean cut, is very mineral driven. And it was very interesting because I remember having a conversation with someone who is a huge champagne buyer at my previous job, and he used to hate might be a strong word, but he really disliked the idea of drinking sake or sake with sushi. He will always drink champagne with sushi, and he kind of brainwashed that into me because what he said at the time makes sense for certain sushi style. And what he said was sake are generally higher in alcohol percentage. For example, I've got 2 bottles here. This is Dasai. This is 16%, which is very, very high, well, compared to most white wine. And this is another bottle that Ken gave me as a gift, which again, I felt like it would actually pair better than my sake than my champagne. And I'll go to white later. And this is also 15 to 16. And most of your champagne, white wine, 12 and under. So he said that because sake is usually so high in alcohol and much lower in acid compared to champagne, it really doesn't pair well with too much of the umami that comes from the soy sauce and the fish. And then the fish generally is very kind of light tasting. So something like a high alcoholic sake with a heavier body, lower acid will cover the sushi. And interesting enough, I've tried it a couple times. I go, you know what? I do find in certain situations that champagne does serve better with your really I had to use the word vanilla, but pretty much vanilla style of California sushi, which is very straightforward, just fish on rice. That actually worked really well. But yesterday I was surprised because Sushi Yoshimitsu was a completely different style. So their sushi, honestly, it's on its own doesn't really need much pairing because it was very flavorful. And I understand some people said that it's too bad that you weren't there in person to drink it or to eat it and drink next to it. Yes, I understand sushi is such a time sensitive dish, but in this year we're just gonna do the best that we can. But I actually felt like because the acidity in Sushi Yoshizumi's nigiri are so high already, when I have another Blanc de Blanc next to it, which is, again, searing in acid, very crisp and clean, it works, but there's two school of thought when you're talking about food and wine pairing. One is to compare, the other one is to contrast. When I feel like I do both. You can always do both, but I feel like when you have a food that already goes to one, or is very distinct going one direction, to me, it's always better to contrast it if there's a good contrasting option. Where in the Sushi Yoshizumi sushi, I felt like it's got a very good acidic pop. And then I actually was craving something that would contrast that really tart, acidic kind of a flavor. It gives you mouth-watering, but then you drink the champagne, which also gets you mouth-watering, and there's nothing to break that kind of that mouth-watering acidic taste. So I actually wish I opened a bottle of sake, and either one of this, I think it would have neutralized that taste even more. I don't know what you guys think. We're live now. You have any comment, feel free to type it below, but I'm going to go through some of the ones that people were recommending, and I thought was really cool and very interesting. So I think, so I know Tiffany talks about she's drinking a white wine, I believe. Oh, no, it was Kitty. Sorry. Kitty talks about drinking Sauvignon Blanc from Kenzo Estate. So I think it will work, but I don't know. I've never actually had Kenzo Estate Sauvignon Blanc, so I'm very curious. And Sauvignon Blanc can go very different in style. So Kitty, if you're here, definitely share your insight and what you thought the Kenzo Sauvignon Blanc leans towards. Because when it comes to Sauvignon Blanc, we have Sauvignon Blanc style from New Zealand, which is very lean and mean, really expressive, very fruity, bright, and again, very high in acid. And then you also have the Sauvignon Blanc coming from Bordeaux, France, that has done some barrel fermenting or some barrel aging. It's really wrong. It's a little creamier. So I think it depends on where in that spectrum Kenzo Estate Sauvignon lands. And again, like you said, which kind of sushi you're pairing it with. I totally can see it working. So that was a cool recommendation. I think I'll need to find a sample of and try sometime. Jason said, just something like, what about Pinot Gris or Koshu or perhaps a Blanc de Blanc? So yes, yesterday I went down that route of thinking and had a Blanc de Blanc, and I think that it was such a beautiful champagne. I love small gore producer champagne, and the price is so affordable. I think it's like $40 a bottle, and it's like Blanc de Blanc from Grand Cru, hello, you can't get that unless it's like a gore producer. Anyways, but I felt like it didn't have the quite enough complexity to balance out with the style of sushi that Sushi Yoshimitsu makes. Okay, Ken Live said aged vintage dry champagne work best with Sushi Yoshimitsu dinner. I agree. Now, Ken, I agree with that because as champagne age, the acidity will start to taper out a bit. Champagne is very high acid to begin with. And then it starts to create that secondary aroma, ginger, brioche bread, orange peel, the other spices. The champagne actually start to almost like champagne start to eventually taste like a very complex white burgundy because it loses bubble, it loses acidity, and it creates a lot of that secondary elements. And with a sushi style like Yoshizumi that is very packed full of flavor, and each one of them actually have a lot of distinct different flavors. Some were more smoky, the other one were more like soaky, some other ones was really like acidic and citrusy. You do need something that has a lot of complex flavor, in my opinion, to stand up to it. And I hate to say it, I love this so much, but it wasn't complex enough to match up, and they actually kind of fight against each other because they were both similar in style. And then Frank, I love Frank's, we actually talked about this before. He is a huge fan of a wine that I personally love. It's made by Heights Cellar. They make a grape called Grinolino, which is a very indigenous Italian grape varietal. You don't even see in Italy unless here in the US. And of course, Heights was originally opened by an Italian immigrant, so he brought his love for Italian variety here to Napa, and he still makes Grinolino till this day. He actually now makes both. Grinolino is a red wine, by the way, but it's a pretty light skin color red, and it almost like cross over to tasting and starting to feel like a rosé. It's almost like lighter than Gamay, not quite as fruity, but a lot of herbalness and a lot of spiciness compared to Gamay. So he actually makes a regular and a rosé version, and Frank said he actually very much enjoyed drinking the red Grinolino to go with Yoshizumi's sushi. And I will tell you, no, like I thought it was like I had the Grinolino and I thought it was kind of a out there idea. It's hard for me to compute that the Grinolino could work. I was like, okay, maybe. I couldn't imagine it, but actually once I had his food yesterday, was how much kind of that different elements of flavor is already in the sushi without addition of soy sauce. I can totally see the Grinolino work. So I thought that was really, really fun. Yan said Vermentino. That's an interesting one. I have no clue if that will work, but I wouldn't imagine the Vermentino because it's pretty clean in style to work with this particular sushi. But oh my God, like I think the fun thing about this whole inspiration and this talk is that there is no one right answer, and there's no way to nail until you put it in your mouth. And even when you do, it really depends on your preference. Like I said, when it comes to food and wine pairing, you can choose to compare or contrast, and depends on if you're comparing or contrasting. Like different people like a different combination of flavor in their mouth. So there's again still no good or bad answer. And Ken also say dry or super dry sake generally work better. There too, palate cleansing, heavier flavor in sushi. But there's a personal preference. Moderately higher acidity sake can work there as well. It also depends on how the sake is built. Absolutely, I 100% agree. Ken definitely does a lot more sake and sushi than I do. I honestly will say I spend most of my limited brain spaces studying about wine. I enjoy sake. In fact, I enjoy sake too much. I almost purposely don't study too hard on sake because I feel like sometimes I spend so much time understanding every nuances of wine, how it's built, the history, how to taste it, how to break it down, how to assess it. Once you understand too much, it's almost hard to enjoy it fully. So I like just drinking sake for the heck of it. So I try not to I will do the minimal research, but I don't know as much about sake. But I do agree the dry or super dry sake will work very well, but I almost want a sake that has a little more built to go with the style that of Yoshizumi that has a lot more flavor, which was just so fun because I love being stunned when it comes to food and wine pairing, being surprised even by myself, by the chef. That's kind of the whole excitement about the world of wines because you never know until you try it. I thought it would have been a straight shot, no problem, pairing a Blanc de Blanc champagne to go with it, and it was not the case at all. And it was just funny because I just think about every other sushi place I go to here in the Bay Area, for the most part, not all, but the most majority is the really clean cut I'm just gonna call it the California style sushi, where we have a slightly vinegar rice. I mean, you can barely taste the vinegar in the rice, and the sushi on top is generally very fresh, and there's usually very minimal seasoning on there. I've seen different restaurants maybe put a little bit of yuzu, sometimes a little bit of shiso, but for the most part, the fish is just cut raw like a sashimi and lay on top of this lightly vinegar rice. So so the only other flavor that you're adding to it is wasabi, which adds spiciness, right? And then the soy sauce, which adds so much umami. And that is a style I'm so used to eating sushi casually. And that style, because of a high sense of umami and how light and elegant the rest of the flavor are, it always makes sense to go with like a light champagne or light white. But hey, it's always fun to be surprised. And I know Ken also went on onto a bunch of different Chablis and white Burgundy recommendation. I agree, the Chablis and the Burgundy, because no matter how you slice it, there's still so much umami that comes through in pretty much all styles of sushi making. And with that high umami, I think it's always great to have the high acidity. So white Burgundy is a natural go-to without having too much alcohol and too much overall body and not too much oak that might cover the settledness of a sushi. It is amazing pairing. Oh, and I have a fun one from my friend, I believe James. He says he liked manzanilla with tempura roll. So I love that pairing. So we're talking about a sherry, not a sweet one, a dry sherry to go with something that's deep fried. Oh, amazing. I do like sherry with pretty much everything, but something that is deep fried, always look for screaming high acid, but nutty and full body and highly aromatic wine. So that's an amazing pairing as well. With that being said, I hope you guys are hungry for some sushi tonight. Support your local restaurant. Don't forget to vote and enjoy a wonderful weekend. I so appreciate all of your input on your favorite pairing with sushi, and I look forward to chatting about something completely fun and random next Friday. So with that said, take care everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye.